Everyone, I will call us to order at 5:32 p.m. If you will rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute
the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Okey-dokey. Mrs. Turley, if you wouldn't mind, roll call, please, ma'am.
Courtney Clausen.
Here.
Walter Hadamio.
Here.
Donalyn Lorenzo. Here. Monica Salazar. Nancy Lee.
Present, we do have a quorum. Board members, adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes, and if so, what? Superintendent.
I recommend that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
All right, board members, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Pardon me. It has been moved by Mr. Clausen and seconded by Mr. Hadamio to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion, board members?
I just had a question. On the budget part of the agenda, it says 5 minutes. Is that gonna include the concession about knowing exactly like what the curriculum is to address some of the questions that I had during that working session?
I don't believe so. I believe that we've had the 2 weeks and any questions were to be directed to Mr. Widener and Mr. Jones during that time.
So my understanding was that from the working session that some of the questions that I had was gonna be discussed at this meeting. So because I had questions in regards to how the budget ties to the needs of the children, so that's what.
I would defer that to Mr. Widener.
So this is the initial acceptance of the budget.
The preliminary.
Correct. We will have to approve the budget again. And we have another working session on June 2nd.
So this, if I remember correctly, is kind of like a placeholder approval in order to get this in front of the PED so that they are aware of exactly what the district has accomplished to this point. However, the final approval, the actual approval of the completed budget, draft budget, would be at that June 2nd meeting. Is that was my understanding. This was Mr. Jones, if you recall, indicated that this was getting us to where we are being compliant with the PED and able to have everything be moving forward. Yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
The program's presentation will come prior to the final approval of the budget. Mr. Widener had to clone himself tonight, and our instruction and deputy superintendent are at, we're gonna have multiple hours in the building. So we've had to shift. So I anticipate not to drag the agenda, but that'll be in the next work session where we go A to Z. These are all the programs and all the services that school districts offer tied to this.
Thank you for that clarification. Anything else on that? All right. Any further discussion, board members?
Actually, I'm sorry, I have one more question. So there is a process to change the budget between now and the next one. The next time we actually have to approve it in case anything comes to the discussion and the information that we are given at the next working session.
Correct. This is where we're telling PED we've built a budget, we've got we've got a budget ready.
We've had presentation, board packets, all those
Stakeholder input.
stakeholder.
Waiting on the cash carryover is that last thing we got.
And then I think it's my last question around that. I know Acoma needed to reschedule their consultation, so will that happen? There was a lot of back and forth, and I think I lost thread of the back and, lost track of the threads back and forth. So will that happen, before the next meeting? Before
No.
we approve the budget?
No, unfortunately, the budget will be submitted after our next meeting. Acoma had to schedule out, we're looking at the week of, I believe it's June 18th.
Okay.
Why?
I'm not
Just
sure.
scheduling.
Was it us?
I'm not sure.
Sir,
Just wanted to add to board member Lorenzo's comments. That's why it's important to have those bars and understand those bars, so we can budget. But those bars will adjust the budget accordingly as we go through some consultation.
All right. Roll call on this one, ma'am.
Mr. Clausen,
Yes.
Mr. Hadamio,
Yes.
Ms. Lorenzo, Ms. Lee.
Yes, the motion carries. Board members, now we have adoption of 2 minutes. I did separate those out just for ease. And I'll remind the board, this will just be a auditory vote on our behalf. Are there any amendments to the April 23rd meeting minutes? That was our first meeting. All right, superintendent.
I recommend that we approve the April 23rd, 2026 minutes.
All right, very good. Board members, is there a motion to approve the April 23rd minutes as presented?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Mr. Clausen and seconded by Mr. Hadamio to approve the April 23rd minutes as presented. Any discussion, board members? All right, all in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye. Motion carries. And now we have the May 5th meeting minutes. Board members, are there any amendments to the May 5th meeting minutes? And if so, what? Superintendent, do you have a recommendation, sir?
I recommend that we adopt the minutes from May 5th, 2026.
All right, board members, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Clausen and seconded by Mr. Hadamio to approve the May 5th meeting minutes as presented. Board members, any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye. The motion carries. All right, next up, we have citizens to address the board. Mrs. Turley, are there any citizens to address the board this evening?
Yes, ma'am, there is.
And who is addressing the board, please?
Mr. Zachary Hawkins.
Mr. Hawkins, I will thank you for being here as a citizen to address. I will remind you that our board policy provides citizens to comment only on agenda items as listed. No action or discussion by the board will occur with all matters referred question-wise to the superintendent. And courtesy towards the board and staff is encouraged as the board policy stresses. And if you would please introduce yourself to the board, and then you have 3 minutes to address the board this evening, sir.
All right, so my name is Zachariah Hawkins, and I'd like to say good evening to all of you. I'm speaking tonight as a teacher who works for the district. My comments relate to the proposed 2026-2027 budget and the pay schedules connected to that budget. The concern that I have is that the workday is going to increase from 7.5 to 8 hours per day for teachers for student safety. This is about a 6.67% increase in the workday. That may not seem like a lot, but that extra time adds up, and it's an increase of about 92.5 hours for the school year, which is about, my calculations, roughly 11 to 12, depending on how you calculate it work days. Many teachers are concerned that the proposed $1,000 pay increase will not cover the additional time spent at work. The state is providing a 1% pay increase. Depending on the teacher's pay scale, after accounting for the extra 11 to 12 workdays, some teachers may only end up receiving about $200 more for this large increase required work time. That comes out to about $17.50 per day for the added work. If the pay is not adjusted correctly, teachers could be missing out on about $4,000 in pay per year, depending on their pay scale and how it's calculated, which I don't know how it's calculated. Teachers were told this change includes compensation at your regular rate of pay. So the regular rate of pay for the additional time, but I'm not sure what that means. However, many of us not yet seen the actual contract language that specifies how this per hour increase will be calculated and implemented in the pay schedule. Before the board approves the 2026-2027 budget, I respectfully ask that the board request the superintendent to provide clarity on the following things. The exact mechanism by which the 0.5 hour daily increase will be compensated. How does this compensation appear in the proposed pay schedules being presented? And confirmation that all teachers understand how this additional time will be reflected in their pay. I do not expect the board to respond directly to me, like you stated, but I ask that you ensure that the administration explains this before the final budget. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much,
And
sir.
thank you for everyone for all their hard work. And I'm looking forward to the mills next year, Mr. Davis. That sounds awesome. Thank you guys. You guys have a wonderful night.
Thank you very much, sir. All right. Mr. Widener. We are ready to begin our presentation, sir.
Yes, we have been talking, we've been having our work sessions and our board meetings, and we discussed quite a bit in our last work session that we would like some guidance as a board. We have 3 new board members that have come in the recent months. And so we would like some guidance on Yazi Martinez litigation and direction on Yazi Martinez. And so tonight I've asked for our first presentation to be Mr. Preston Sanchez. He has spoken to our board several times in the past, but we do have 3 new members. So Mr. Sanchez is there with us online, and it's my pleasure to turn the floor over to him.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Widener. Good afternoon, good evening, members of this board. My name is Preston Sanchez. I am an attorney at the ACLU of New Mexico currently, but when I started on Yazi Martinez as one of the attorneys, I was with the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty, and I'm here with my colleague, Elisa.
Hi, good evening. My name is Elisa Deal. I'm an attorney with the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty, as Preston said, and along with Preston and 2 other colleagues who aren't with us tonight, we represent the Yazi plaintiffs. So thank you so much for having us this evening.
Thank you both for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And I think, because there are some new board members and, we've had some discussions in the past, I think what Elisa and I would like to do is just provide a brief overview of the lawsuit and provide some context for what it's all about, and the type of progress that has been made over the last 10 years or so, and what this case continues to work to achieve, essentially. So we have a PowerPoint presentation we'd like to run through. And, at any point, if anyone has questions or comments or thoughts, feel free to just stop us and let us know, and we can have a conversation about it. But we're also happy to have a discussion afterwards.
Yep. So I can run that on my end. And we also shared a copy of this presentation for you all to have for your personal records as well.
Right. All right. So, I'll just start from the beginning. And, it feels like I've been on this case since I was little, but I was actually just a baby attorney just getting started. And I started at the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. I'm from New Mexico, born and raised here. And so for me, it was quite an honor to be involved in this lawsuit from the very get-go. So we filed it in 2014. As you can go ahead, Elisa, to the next slide. Are you in charge of slides? There we go.
Yes.
Okay. So as many of you have already sort of, been aware of, long before this case was ever filed, and long before, education sort of became this main priority amongst, our governments, our state government, local governments, and how Yazi Martinez became known is, we were sort of researching the issues pertaining to students in New Mexico, going further back in 2006, but really sort of using the information that we had at the time, the data that revealed that public schools students were not performing academically well or proficiently, in most indicators, by most indicators. So math and reading, for example, test scores have always been pretty low. Graduation rates, were not necessarily high, but they weren't low. Not necessarily too low, but they weren't great either. And these measures obviously revealed a much bigger issue when we started to disaggregate that data by student subgroups. So looking at the number of students who are low income, English language learners, for example, tend to perform much worse than your average low income, non-English language learner student. And then the results are somewhat similar for students of color. So, this sort of prompted a question about, well, what is the cause, of this effect? What is sort of impacting our students in a way that, we can try to fix, but what are some of the systemic issues? So looking at the next slide, the question about, the poor academic performance is really sort of explained by the lack of resources, the lack of funding, and the poor educational opportunities that students have in public schools in New Mexico. And keep in mind, 2006, there was a pretty unique study that was done. It was by the American Institutes Research, AIR is what they referred to it as. Some of you might have been involved in that process or involved in that study that was conducted by it was conducted by a research company now known as AIR, but they were also bringing in legislators and educators, to sort of understand what some of those issues were, what were some of the problems that school districts were facing at that time. And then they tried to sort of cost out what it would take to actually address those issues. And so this AIR study revealed in between 2006 and 2008, after doing all these studies, that public schools were underfunded by about 600 million annually. And that was just the sort of surface level. That's just to get us to a level of, what schools needed in terms of funding to provide the resources for students. That wasn't accounting for inflation and other types of issues that rural school districts especially deal with, and tribals and schools that sit on or near tribal lands. And these tend to be the school districts that are most deprived of the resources. Teacher turnover rates, for example, long-term substitutes, transportation, school buses, lack of funding for those kinds of necessities were really problematic across the board. And that was pretty much a statewide issue. That mixed with the fact that, there was not a governor at any point in time that was really taking ownership of the issue, and the state legislature, while they were sort of implementing piecemeal reform and trying to do, sort of take care of one thing at a time, there was just no comprehensive effort to really address these problems. And so you mix the lack of resources and funding with poor decision making and accountability by our state leaders. We see exactly what we have in terms of the poor academic outcomes amongst most students in New Mexico. And so, the students are just not prepared essentially for the next steps in their development, which is to prepare them with the skills necessary to go into college and or the workforce and to be able to be successful in those institutions. And so this is when we filed the case in 2014. We filed it in a state district court. Keep in mind that, these kinds of cases are known as school finance cases. So a lawsuit of this nature is not necessarily novel. It's not unique even to New Mexico. Back in 1996, many of you may be aware of a case known as Zuni versus the state of New Mexico, which challenged the lack of capital funding for public schools. I think maybe Grants might have been a plaintiff to that case, but it was filed by Zuni and Gallup and maybe one other district or two other districts that were struggling to, basically have the resources or funding they needed for capital improvements because of the land that they sit on is non-taxable, and so it's hard to raise revenue for those purposes. So a court in that case in 1999 ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, which ultimately led to the development of the adequacy standards that I think most districts are operating under, which provide, that determines how much funding the state legislature will allocate to those districts based on priority and need. So, sort of you thinking about that kind of case, we filed the Yazzie versus State of New Mexico lawsuit in 2014. As many of you all know, or as everyone knows, our case was also combined with another plaintiff group known as the Martinez plaintiffs, who filed a similar case at a similar time. The court decided to just consolidate the two cases in 2015, and that's how you have Yazzie Martinez versus the state of New Mexico. But looking at our case, the Yazzie versus the state of New Mexico, who we represent, the Yazzie plaintiffs, we have about 5 family plaintiffs who are diverse in a number of ways. We have English language learner families, low-income families, Native American, Hispanic, Black, students with disabilities. And we represent 6 school districts, including Cuba, Gallup, Santa Fe, Rio Rancho, Lake Arthur, and Moriarty. And, we sue the state of New Mexico in this case, which is the New Mexico legislature, because of their role in passing the budget and making new laws that pertain to education in New Mexico. We also sued the New Mexico Public Education Department as the executive branch of government that enforces the laws, and the PED secretary, which, has many duties, constitutional duties to ensure that public education is adequate. Our legal claim essentially was that the defendants, the state of New Mexico, had violated the state constitutional rights of students, particularly the students who are low income English language learner students, Native American students, and students with disabilities, that because of the lack of resources and because of the lack of reform efforts, that the state has not met its constitutional duty to provide students with a sufficient education, which is required by our state constitution. Next slide, please.
Mr. Preston, before you go on, this is Donalyn. I have a question on that previous slide. Can you repeat?
Okay.
Can you please repeat the school districts again? And then can you share what districts those 5 family plaintiffs are from?
Yeah, sure. And if this will be my best off the top memory of where everyone goes. It's been a long time since we've actually looked at the family plaintiffs who were, and what their status, for their children was after the ruling in 2018. So the 6 school districts are Santa Fe Public Schools, Rio Rancho Public Schools, and these are the 2 sort of larger districts that have larger urban populations and, sort of have those kinds of issues pertaining to those kinds of districts. And then we have, I think, two small or three smaller districts like Cuba Independent School District, Moriarty Edgewood School District, and Lake Arthur School District. And Lake Arthur being the smallest of the districts, I think considered a micro district, given that it has like less than 100 students in attendance. And then Gallup, McKinley County School District. So the whole sort of purpose of representing a number of districts that have various different sort of geographical factors or challenges really sort of like gives good representation to the entire school district, all of the school districts throughout New Mexico in terms of their geographical challenges, the students that they serve. And these are districts that serve predominantly at-risk students, or what the court determined as to be at-risk students. And so the five family plaintiffs, many of those families came from Albuquerque Public Schools. Our lead family plaintiff, Wilhelmina Yazzie, which the case is named after, comes from Gallup McKinley County Schools. We had Marcelino, whose children might have went to Grand Cibola County Schools at one time. And then we had two other family members, one whose family went to Peñasco Independent School District. And then there's another district that I just, for the life of me, I can't remember which one it is. But the Martinez plaintiffs also represent 5 to 10 different family plaintiffs as well. Similar school districts like Albuquerque Public Schools, but also including school districts like Zuni Public Schools, and then Espanola Public Schools. So there's, more variation with the other family plaintiffs there.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, next slide, please. So, as many of you know, we have a number of legal protections for students in New Mexico. Primarily, we have the New Mexico Constitution, Article 12, Section 1. And we really based, our legal claim against the state of New Mexico on the term sufficient, which is highlighted here in this slide. But it's a uniform system of free public schools sufficient for the education of all school-age children. And so, when we filed this case, we didn't quite have a definition of sufficiency. I don't think there was no court in New Mexico that had defined what that means. So we were sort of having to look to other states and other school finance lawsuits around the way that we could sort of paint a picture as to what sufficiency meant as it relates to other state constitutions. So every state has a constitution, and every state constitution has an education clause similar to New Mexico's, with the exception of, I think, 2 different states. And New Mexico has pretty decent language for its state constitution. So that's primarily why we chose, the sufficiency clause, is because it really sort of establishes a foundation for what all schools need to be doing in terms of providing students an education. But we sort of grounded that in the fact that students, go to public school, primary school, secondary school, all with the intent to sort of become, proficient in the skills and the abilities necessary to be successful in college and the workforce. So that's ultimately what we offered the court in this case, is a definition of sufficiency that is around college and career readiness. But a lot of the court's ruling, as you'll see, was grounded in some of our laws that exist, that were passed by the state legislature, including the Indian Education Act, the Hispanic Education Act, the Bilingual Multicultural Education Act, as well as other federal laws pertaining to students with disabilities and English language learner students. Next slide, please. And so in grounding our case in, these laws, it was really important that we highlight the unique and cultural diversity that we have in New Mexico, something that I think, everybody's proud of and wants to maintain, but we wanted to see a school system that reflects those identities of those children and families. Next slide, please. And so grounding these ideas in law, but also in constitutional language, and making it digestible, we sort of, our legal theory at that time was that New Mexico education is grounded in the unique cultural and linguistic strengths of our students. Grand Cibola County Schools being one of the school districts that serves a significant population of Native American students and Hispanic students, and rural families and, have those geographical challenges, much like many of the school districts that are rural in New Mexico. It's important that we sort of put that as one of the priorities that we consider to be, the definition of a sufficient education. It's really grounded in these state laws that were passed by the state legislature to enhance education so that it reflects the identities of children. New Mexico children also have, the opportunity, if they have the right opportunities, can succeed. Any children, all children can succeed if they have adequate opportunities to do so. And that the investments that we make today are going to benefit our kids tomorrow. So, these things need to happen as soon as possible. Next slide, please. And so we were successful in receiving the court's ruling in 2018. Prior to 2018, we took the case to trial in 2017. We spent a whole 2 months in Santa Fe every day for 5 weeks. The plaintiffs had presented their case in chief, meaning we offered expert witnesses in the world of education, including finance, including policy, Indian education and Hispanic education experts, multicultural, multilingual education experts. And we also had quite a bit of testimony from many of the superintendents of at least 23 school districts at that time testifying, as well as a number of educators, deep understanding and knowledge about public schools, processes, funding, so on and so forth. And so, the judge really sort of got a good understanding of the deep dynamics that occur in public schools, not only in rural schools, but also in the big urban schools like Albuquerque Public Schools and Rio Rancho as well. And so after, 5 weeks, the defendants had their opportunity to defend the state of New Mexico with its evidence that public school students were receiving an adequate education. And so that sort of took 8 weeks to do, but the court found favorably for the plaintiffs, ruling that public schools are unconstitutional, and that New Mexico students who are considered at risk, meaning English language learners, low-income students, students with disabilities, and Native American students, which, if you add up all of the students in those categories, comprises the majority of students in New Mexico, that at-risk students, that their rights to a sufficient education have been violated. And so, so the law requires that the state must ensure that schools are compliant with not only the state constitution, but also the state laws that were intended to benefit and enhance the education of students who have those unique cultural, linguistically, and diverse needs. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And so, taking a look back, and this is just a snapshot of what the experts testified to, and superintendents, if you can imagine, a courtroom where, it's a packed courtroom and, witnesses are being called to testify. What we tried to sort of show for the judge is, if you ask an expert, what are some of the major reform efforts for public schools that will benefit students immensely. Early childhood education was one of those, key factors, as well as increases for teacher salaries, extended learning opportunities, sufficient after school and summer school programs, fine arts, PE, all of these programs here that are listed among many more, along with, the implementation of state law and in funding for transportation instructional materials that, if these things are done, I mean, you can make some significant gains academically for students and make a better sort of school system. And then following their testimony, we had superintendents that say, yeah, we have one early childhood education program in our district, but we can't afford another early childhood education program in a different part of our district. Or some school districts that would, substitute fine arts for PE or PE for music because they can't afford, the sort of menu of extracurriculars. A lot of students, and a lot of districts are in need of social workers and counselors and nurses full time, not just, floaters that kind of do part-time work, but I think full time, 4-day to 5-day a week social workers and counselors and that kind of stuff that just wasn't there. The funding wasn't there for that. And if you all were, working for the public schools back in, I think it was 2008, 2009, you may remember the state really sort of went after school districts that were carrying more cash reserves than I think like 5% and taking those cash reserves, basically robbing school districts of the funding that they had saved up for, a rainy day. So it kind of punished the districts that were in that boat for saving money. And I think a lot of districts were afraid of, what it means to have money on hand, cash reserves, because of the state's willingness to just take that money if it needed it. So we were seeing some problems with funding as well, and we were also just kind of, providing testimony about the effect of reading programs, literacy programs, and tutors and those kinds of things. So that's the context for this case, is really about programmatic services. It's about operational dollars, how districts are able to utilize dollars and increase opportunities for students, but also the necessities include transportation, instruction materials, and teachers, and aligned with state and federal law. Next slide, please. And so I'll go ahead and pass it to my colleague Elisa to sort of catch you up to speed as to where things have been in the last, since the ruling, since 2018.
Thanks, Preston. So in the years after the ruling, we've been hard at work, trying to hold the state accountable and really enforce the court's order. And not only just the court's order from 2018, but then its subsequent 600 pages of findings of fact that really outline all the deficiencies and where the state has really failed the system and failed to live up to its obligations. We went through a legal process called discovery, where we really gathered information over the course of several years in terms of how the state had responded to the court's ruling. We conducted interviews under oath called depositions. We received written answers to questions from PD and thousands of pages of documents to really put together a picture for the judge in terms of how the state really had not done enough to meet its pretty massive obligation under not just the state constitution and state law, as Preston outlined, but also under the court's own ruling, and address those findings of fact. So in 2024, we went back to court, had a hearing just about a year ago. And what we had put forward to the judge was, as I said, a whole lot of evidence of what the state had really failed to do in the years since the ruling. And that because of its failure, that really the court needed to step in and require the state to do more. So we filed a non-compliance motion, again, outlining all the evidence where the state had failed to do enough, and had asked that the state be required to develop a comprehensive plan for how it's going to meet its obligation to students in the 4 student groups. And we prevailed. The judge agreed that something we all know, the system is still unconstitutional. The state hasn't made the changes that it's really required to make in order for students to have the education that they're entitled to under the Constitution. The judge ordered the PED to develop a comprehensive plan to address these ongoing violations. Freeze. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe it's just my screen. Apologies. So PD was ordered to develop a plan in consultation with expert consultants that it said that it needed to really do this work. And really importantly, from our perspective, the state was required to really gather and incorporate meaningful stakeholder input into really specifics of this plan. I'm sorry, my computer screen is frozen. Just a second here. Let's see. Can't switch slides, guys. Sorry about that. All right, well, I'm gonna keep speaking and hopefully my computer will catch up. I think it's tired. Just last November, after convening communities all over the state, PED released a final plan that it alleges, there we go. Sorry. That it really alleges meets its obligation under the Constitution, under state law, that incorporates the feedback it got from communities. And unfortunately, to say that we were deeply disappointed with this plan is probably an understatement, and we were certainly not alone in that. This is kind of a high-level summary of some of the issues that we could identify with the plan, but really it's quite vague. It's not actually an action plan that could be enforceable and create real change in schools. We don't think it meaningfully incorporates the feedback that PED received both last summer and, for years before that time. It doesn't include any kind of cost analysis as to what this is actually going to cost to implement year to year. It doesn't really lay out accountability structures. It doesn't build up the department's own capacity to really be able to implement this plan. And it's only a 3-year timeline that the state claims it's going to be able to really meet these obligations, and we just don't think that that's realistic. So we had an opportunity to put these objections to the plan in writing. They were really based not only on what we've always heard from communities, but also on the analyses of many subject matter experts who lent their expertise to reviewing and analyzing the plan for us, to really lay out how this plan wasn't going to actually result in creating a constitutional system. So PD then, of course, had a opportunity to respond to our objections. And again, this slide is a summary of hundreds of pages of legal briefs. So we, try to keep it short and simple without delving too much into any of this. I would not be surprised if you all perhaps had similar thoughts in terms of issues with the plan, if you've had the opportunity to review it. But much like trial, I believe that the PED really defended itself in terms of the plan that it put forward, and kind of tried to say things existed within the plan that really were much more substantial than they looked on paper. The PED said that it has done a lot of things already, and that it has these initiatives in the works. The PD, I think most importantly, from our perspective, instead of really engaging with the analyses from our experts, really just tried to discredit them and question their expertise and motives for putting forward a critique. So after a few more rounds of briefing that actually just concluded last week, we have asked the court to step in again and to order really a full rewrite of the plan. We don't think it's anywhere near where it needs to be. And because the state has had the chance to draft a comprehensive plan and hasn't done so in a way that's adequate to meet the needs of students in the 4 student groups, we're asking that the court authorize the plaintiffs to lead the rewrite process. It, of course, wouldn't just be lawyers sitting in a room writing a plan, because we don't think that that's how we get to where we need to be either, but that we would work with subject matter experts who would really lead a process that is based on community input and that fully incorporates real, authentic, meaningful tribal consultation. This plan would include all of the concrete elements that we had asked for. And then finally, once that rewrite process is done, we're asking that PD be required to submit a full cost analysis and estimates for what it would cost year to year to actually fund this plan and make that a really transparent process for the public to be able to not only review initially, but be able to monitor over time. And then finally, in terms of accountability, that then PD would be required to submit reports in terms of progress, the data behind how they're measuring that progress and evaluating whether action steps are actually leading to very specific targets and goals. And then finally, here's just a timeline from the beginning of the case. Really, the next step now, though, is that we have a hearing scheduled in September where the judge will hear our arguments as to our objections. The PD will have a chance to reply, and we will hear from the judge in terms of what the next steps in this case will be. And so we'll be preparing for that between now and September and encourage everyone to tune in. It will be a virtual hearing. So that's the end of our slideshow. So I'll stop sharing, but I think we're happy to answer questions or hear comments.
Thank you all so much for that very detailed presentation. I think that that really helps the board and the district understand where things are right now and what we need to be hearing and aware of. Board members, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Sanchez? And I'm gonna mess up your name, Miss Dial?
It's okay. It's Deal, and you can call me
Deal.
Elisa.
I apologize for that.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you, board members.
Yes, on that one in the 2009
This
one.
this is Vice President Jaramillo.
Walter. On the 2009 one in the Zuni, what was that one about with the Zuni?
The Zuni lawsuit, yes. Mr. Jaramillo and members of the board, it was Zuni versus the state of New Mexico. If you did a quick Google search, you'll probably receive very quickly some state legislative documents about the case and the timeline as to how it worked and where it's at now. As far as I know, the case was sort of brought back to life, I think in like the right after the pandemic. And something happened, but it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court sort of like made a ruling pertaining to bringing new claims under that case. But if you want history on the sort of life of the case as it was when it was filed, it's Zuni v. State of New Mexico, and there's other districts that also were involved as plaintiffs in that case as well. So Zuni Public School District versus State of New Mexico.
Thank you.
On slide, this is Donalyn Lorenzo. On slide 14, it states that it did not address the 9 components. Can you really quickly just like state what those 9 components are?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So in our non-compliance motion, we asked that a comprehensive plan really be built from what we call our 9 components, but essentially we took the court's findings of fact. We reviewed substantial documentation of community-based feedback and input in terms of what education should and could look like for our students. And asked that the plan really build from those 9 components that address the system as a whole. And the reason we did that was because we had concern that without those kinds of parameters, that the state would really pick and choose what it was going to include in a plan. And it's certainly something we can provide after this meeting for you all to take a look at. And I have a pullout. You don't have to read a 150-page motion to take a look at those, but unfortunately, our assumption that the plan would not be comprehensive in terms of all of those areas that the components cover was accurate. And we saw that the plan left out certain pieces of our components completely and then failed to address others in any kind of, real comprehensive and meaningful way.
My other question, this is Donaldin again. My other question is in regards to, right, because this is like 10 years old now, like, what do you all feel, are things that, so let me just back up and ask it a different way, because I'm the newest board member and I was, the first conferences that I went to, talked a little bit about this. And so like my impression during that conference is that districts are waiting for the state to do something so they can do something, right? And so that to me seems like there's a lot that plays into why this is taking so long. So I guess what's your impression of that, or how can districts move forward with implementing some of this without like waiting for the state, right? So that individual districts can be compliant or somewhat compliant. And then I have another question in regards to that.
I'll take a stab and just acknowledge the first part of your question. There has definitely been resistance by this governor's administration for the last 8 years against this case. And we didn't expect that from this governor. I think on the notion that she ran on this campaign that she was going to embrace Yazzie Martinez, and but a year after into her administration or into her current seat as governor, she tried to dismiss the case in 2020 and 2021. So we overcame those motions to dismiss, and we actually were able to secure a different type of motion that allowed us to sort of open up the window of what's called discovery. So that gave the attorneys the chance to sort of ask and do interviews of PED officials, secretaries, deputy secretaries, to inquire about the inquire about what actions the state has taken to actually comply with this case. And that's, ultimately what led to the motion in 2024 that Elisa just mentioned that we won most recently. Because the motion was based on all of the evidence that we gathered from 2021 to 2024, showing that the state has not only not delivered on any of the remedies that are required of it, but also that the PED itself is just this sort of like shell of an actual agency. And as you all may be aware, the PED secretaries have been coming and going, and we've seen about 5 PED secretaries in the last 8 years, which sort of speaks to the leadership at PED. And as you said, we need a PED and a state that is actually leading the way, so that districts can sort of fall in line with that. So I think, with that being said, there is an opportunity now, given that a new governor will be stepping into that seat in the next 6 months or so. And so we're sort of seeing that as an opportunity to sort of move this thing even faster and in a much more progressive manner. But in terms of what you're asking about in relation to compliance, there's quite a bit as it relates to this case. It's a systemic, these issues are largely systemic, and so they exist in a number of ways. And the data, sort of highlights how those systemic problems take effect. So I always want to say that the findings of fact that were drafted and endorsed by the judge in 2018 is a good starting place to see what the districts were dealing with in 2017 at the time of trial, and 2018 when the ruling was actually made. And it's a pretty lengthy, large document known as the findings of fact and conclusions of law that highlight all of the key areas within Yazzie Martinez that were addressed at trial, all of the evidence to show that public schools were not able to provide students a sufficient education in the areas of early childhood education, K through 12 public school programs and services, and then really detailing the needs of Native American English learners, low-income students, and students with disabilities, and sort of how those districts, how schools are not able to actually meet those needs. And a lot of it does fall on the PED. The PED does have a lot of duties to ensure that districts have what they need to be compliant. And so I think that's, ultimately where we're landing now is, the state does need to be held accountable, and we're pushing the court to actually make that happen. But I think the findings of fact and conclusions of law really sort of highlight all of the systemic barriers that are still in place if they're not addressed, through this case and through the comprehensive planning that Elisa Deal just mentioned. I hope that answers the question. I know it's sort of like high level. Every district's going to be different, so there's going to be like specific differences that are pertain to Grand Cibola County schools as opposed to, Rio Rancho or Las Cruces or something like that. So, I'm just trying to give you some impressions as to what I think the solutions might be, knowing that every district is somewhat different and every population is somewhat different as well.
My other question, in regards to that is, I think that a lot of, families here in the district, are low income. And so how a district like Grant Cibola County, like focus on all of the needs of the students, right? And when we're allocating, and I'm bringing this up because, one of the things that we're discussing today and have been, at our last meeting is our budget, and how are we ensuring that money is allocated to address the needs under Yazi Martinez.
Yeah, I don't think there's a specific remedy that Yazi Martinez lays out for how, districts must do X, Y, or Z. I think that's largely the local control sort of district question that, school board and district administrators and staff have the sort of the reality is that they have to grapple with that. But I think what the Yazi Martinez case states is that those students have needs, and they, again, they're contained in the findings of fact and conclusions of law. It's a lot of facts about parents and families whose children start school without the basic skills that they need to start at kindergarten. And so early childhood education is a real solution to that issue, and ensuring that students have access to not only early childhood education, but full-time early childhood education programs, as opposed to a half-day program, for example. Those are the needs that students have, and that's the ways in which Yazi Martinez sort of elaborates or talks about how to address those needs. But there isn't really any specific sort of like districts, you must do this in order to be compliant with Yazi Martinez. The Yazi Martinez case is more specific to what PED's duties are to ensure that districts are compliant. So it's really putting the onus on the PED to hold school districts accountable. And so without the leadership in place, though, it's really hard to say what districts can be doing or should be doing without PED's guidance, sort of leading the way. But I would encourage you all to look at those documents that I just mentioned, and there's ways in which you can do quick word searches for early childhood education, or even look at what the testimony was provided by Mark Space, the former superintendent of Grand Cibola County Schools at that time, and what he testified to as some of the issues impacting Grand Cibola County schools. And there were also some experts in English language learner education and Native American student education also who testified about things that they observed pertaining to not only school districts in general, but also I think there was mentions of the programs and services that were being provided or not provided for English learner students in Grand Cibola County schools as well.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Board members, any final questions or comments? Thank you both so much for being here to help us with this tonight. I think you definitely increased our knowledge about this, and we will be looking forward to learning more and seeing what happens in September.
Thank you for having us. It's always, an opportunity for us to share with you what's the latest and greatest. So thank you for just this time. And I see Larry, I just want to say hello. I haven't seen you in a minute, so it's good to see you. And, thank you all for this opportunity.
Will you all provide contact information in case we have follow-up questions outside of this meeting?
Yeah, I think Mr. Widener might have our emails. We've been exchanging information back and forth prior to this meeting. So if it's okay with him to share that it's okay with us, if it's okay with Mr. Widener to share that information with all of you, our contact information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. We
All right.
appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye.
And I'll just point out the first slide has
Oh,
the
yeah, that's right.
emails on there for everybody. Mr. Widener, sir.
At this time, Mr. Chavez is, as our Executive Director of Student Support, he is going to report on our spring sports for the Laguna Acoma Hawks as well as the Grants Pirates.
Good evening, Madam President, to members of the board, superintendent, team, members of the cabinet. Great pleasure tonight to kind of give a summary of spring sports. A very successful season for Grand Cibola County schools. We'll start with Laguna Acoma Hawks. Their baseball team made it to the state playoffs. They were seeded 12th. They happened to lose to the 5th seeded Texaco Wolverines. Texaco's always a team that's very strong in AA across all sports. So they had a great season, wanted to make sure that we congratulated them. The track team had a multiple state champion, Pedro, Tagoya Pedro. He won the 800 and the 1600, and he was the state runner-up in the 400. So congratulations to him, to the track team. Wonderful, wonderful job. The boys finished 10th and scored a grand total of 20 points. So they had a very successful season. We'll move on to the Grants Pirates. Their girls tennis team was the district champions, and they were seated 4th at the state tournament as a team. They didn't progress past that first round, but we wanted to make sure we congratulated them on the district championship and the 4th seed. They also had the number 8 seed in baseball. They hosted St. Pius, who was the 9th seed, and St. Pius did knock them out of the first round. On the track, the girls finished 8th with a grand total of 20 points. They had Layla Martinez, who finished 3rd in the mile and the 800. The girls 4x800 meter team also placed 3rd, so they all finished on the podium this year. Tori Filippi finished 5th in the discus and 3rd in the shot. And they had a very successful showing. Anytime you can finish in the top 10, you really should be proud of that team. So we want to really congratulate the athletes, the coaches, both sides and administration for really having a successful spring sports season.
Excellent. Congratulations to our kiddos. That's wonderful.
We're winding down.
Yes. Mr. Widener.
At this time, we had our most recent board work session 2 weeks ago. At this time, we're going to have some more policy reads. We are going to take action on our second reads. And so at this time, I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Gallegos Ortiz.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight we will be doing second reads on Policy Services Advisory Volume 15, number 1 from May of 2018. And we will cover advisory numbers 141 to 156 that have not been updated on newer policy advisories. Policy Advisory 141, this is policy E1950. EE Transportation Services and E1981 EE-E Transportation Services Exhibit. One of the key responsibilities of the local school board is to ensure that there is a clear and accessible platform for community, parents, staff, and transportation provider participation in developing transportation policies and procedures. This is something that we are currently doing. Ongoing information, sharing, and training, and public access to policies that define the rights and responsibilities of all stakeholders. PED recommends district transportation policies easily accessible to the public, and that is one thing that besides our policies, we have our procedures on our website as well. The transportation services policy was rewritten and updated to serve as the foundational policy for all transportation related procedures. Its purpose is to provide guidance, education, and clarity regarding transportation rights, responsibilities, policies, and operational procedures. The policy also incorporates requirements found in NMAC 6-41-4, 8, and 9, which outline extensive board responsibilities and are implemented throughout district administration. That's for policy advisory number 141. For policy advisory number 142, this is E2000 EEA student transportation, E2031 EEA-R student transportation regulation, and E2000 EEAE student transportation school bus incident report exhibit. This policy establishes that student transportation is considered a privilege rather than an absolute right. And it outlines the expectations and procedures associated with safe student transportation services. The policy provides guidance and procedures for all individuals involved in student transportation, including students, parents, and bus drivers. Key areas addressed in the policy include student behavior and conduct expectations while riding district transportation, parent and guardian responsibilities related to student transportation, and bus driver responsibilities for maintaining safety, order, and compliance with district procedures. Responsibilities for bus support personnel are addressed separately in other district policies and administrative regulations. And the bus incident report was moved from the bus safety program, and it is now included as an exhibit within this policy to better align incident reporting with student discipline procedures. Policy advisory number 143, this is E2050 EEAA, eligibility for bus transportation, walkers, and riders. This policy addresses student eligibility for district transportation services, including provisions related to walkers, riders, and specialized transportation needs. The policy was previously revised following changes to State Statute 22-16-4, which authorized the limited use of SUVs for student transportation purposes. Updates to the policy also ensure inclusion of transportation consideration for students with special needs. The advisory notes that the detailed PED safety requirements may create operational challenges for districts considering SUV transportation options. Overall, the policy reinforces the importance of maintaining safe, compliant, and equitable transportation practices for all eligible students. For policy advisory number 144, E2100 EEAB, special education student transportation, students with special transportation needs. This policy addresses transportation requirements for students with special transportation needs and aligns with requirements established in the Public Education Department under NMAC 641-4-4, 8, and 9. The policy recognizes that students with disabilities or specialized medical and educational needs may require individualized transportation accommodations, and transportation arrangements for students with special needs should be determined through the student's IEP, Section 504 plan, health plan, or other individualized support plans as appropriate.
Can I ask a question on
Sure.
that one really quickly? So on the special needs ones, it says that if like at a time matters will be referred to the team responsible for determining for determination of transportation. Like who is on that team and like what are some of like the examples that would be that would go to that team?
Madam President, Board Member Lorenzo, it's the IEP team.
Okay.
So it's those that are included as team members, special ed, teachers, general ed teachers, staff, the students, all as part of the team. So the IEP team will be referred to the team.
Okay. And so that includes the parents?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Policy advisory number 145, E2250 EEAE bus safety program, and E2261 EEAER bus safety program emergency plan of action regulations. This policy serves as a comprehensive framework for the district's bus safety program and incorporates multiple PED transportation safety regulations related to student transportation operations. The policy addresses a broad range of transportation safety areas, including bus equipment and safety requirements, district and transportation provider responsibilities, driver and transportation support staff expectations, and safety guidance for students, staff, and parents and the community. Because of the extensive nature of PED transportation regulations, not all requirements were incorporated directly into the policy, and instead, many regulations are included throughout legal references, policy, cross-references, and supporting administrative regulations. Policy E2281 EEAE EA bus safety program, that policy has been deleted completely, and these ones have been added in. For policy advisory number 146 was already updated again in policy advisory 204. For policy advisory 147 E2400 EEAEB bus purchasing and maintenance, a minor change to the title of the guide used for standard and maintenance of buses is found in this policy, and it's just a technical update. For policy advisory number 148 E2450 EEACE student conduct on school buses, this policy is primarily a cross-referencing tool within the district policy manual to ensure consistency and clarity across transportation-related documents. Overall, this advisory supports a streamlined policy system by linking related transportation conduct expectations across existing district policies and regulations. For policy advisory 149 E2650 EEAFA transportation to student activities and E2661 EEAFAE transportation to student activities or responsibilities, this policy was renamed and updated to align with policy guidance. With PED policy guidance, expanding its scope to more fully address transportation for all student activity trips. PED regulations outlined detailed requirements for district-sponsored activity trips, including expectations for planning, supervising, and safe transportation practices. And these requirements are incorporated by reference within the policy. The policy includes an exhibit recommending that districts provide drivers with either a compliance checklist or a complete copy of applicable transportation regulations. Policy advisory 150 E2690 extracurricular activity event driver requirements has been deleted.
I think it was this policy, it's somewhere in here, I can't find it now, but when I was reading it earlier, it said that students have to go to and from unless it's approved. Like, how much time did parents need to request that approval to transport or bring home their own student?
Madam President and Board Member Lorenzo, that's referencing school activities,
Yes.
athletic events. So long as they give notice to the parent and they sign out that liability waiver, it could be any time from the day prior to, it all
Like
depends.
at the event? Oh,
All depends.
That's the double release form.
Correct.
oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's liability.
yeah, thank you.
They don't need any prior notice.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Policy advisory number 151 E2700 EEAG student transportation in private vehicles and E2711 EEAGR student transportation in private vehicles regulation. This policy addresses the use of private vehicles for student transportation and was reviewed for clarity and alignment with updated PED guidance. Policy services identified that per capita mileage reimbursement was not originally included in the policy text, although the procedures were already outlined in the supporting regulation. To improve clarity and ensure consistency with PED rules, a single sentence from the updated PED guidance was added to this policy. The related regulation was not revised, but is included for reference to provide full context and ensure transparency of the established procedures. Policy advisory 152 was already updated again in policy advisory 223, and policy advisory 153 was updated on Policy Advisory 209. For Policy Advisory 154, J 4850, JKD, student suspension and expulsion. This policy aligns with updated guidance of NMAC, specifically 6-11-2-12 regarding student status pending a hearing. The revision was made following a legal review requested by a practicing New Mexico attorney and addresses procedural challenges districts have experienced with scheduling long-term suspension or expulsion hearings within the required timelines. These challenges often occur due to prior disciplinary action or required notice periods that can impact the ability to hold hearings within the standard 10-day timeframe following a temporary suspension. The updated policy clarifies expectations for maintaining student status while a hearing is pending and directs districts to the applicable MMAC provisions and detailed procedural guidance. That's it for that policy advisory. Are there any questions on that one? Okay. For policy number G2150, GCB, professional staff contracts and compensation, this is the second read for that policy. The most important change is tightening contract authority. Multi-year contracts are explicitly prohibited for all staff except the superintendent. This reduces risk for the school district. This is a significant legal clarification and protects the district from claims of implied continued employment and aligns directly with state statute expectations. Are there any questions on that one? Okay. This is the second read for policy J7050, JR, student records. We are requesting to add in wording giving parents and guardians the right to inspect and review all educational records. It includes raw data, work samples, and specific evidence used to monitor progress towards IEP goals. Any questions on that one? This is the second read for policy I-2350, IHB, special instructional programs. We are requesting to add wording stating that progress reports for students on an IEP must provide clear data-based documentation of growth to ensure meaningful parental participation in the educational process. Also, for students with disabilities, all educational decisions, including grade level placement, classroom grouping, and least restrictive environment determinations, must be made by the IEP team based on individualized, objective, progressive monitoring data rather than disability category or general achievement. Any questions on that one? So now we'll move on to second reads for policy advisory, volume 26, number 1 from April of 2026. Policy G1350, GBGC, employee assistance. This policy updates the NMSBA model policy to ensure alignment with current federal law and guidance. The revision replaces the existing language governing when the district may require an employee to undergo a medical examination. Previously, the policy allowed medical examinations based on the judgment of an immediate supervisor or the superintendent. This language was too broad and not fully consistent with legal standards. The updated policy aligns with the Americans with Disabilities Act, EEOC regulations, and federal guidance, which require more specific and legally supported criteria before an employer can mandate a medical examination. Overall, this update strengthens legal compliance, reduces liability, and ensures employee protections are consistent with federal law best practices. Next, we have policy advisory number 274, policy K1000 KDB, public right to know, and K1031 KDBE, public right to know exhibit. Update to better align with New Mexico Inspection of Public Records Act. The revisions clarify and modernize language to ensure consistency with state law and remove any potentially misleading wording. A key requirement reinforced in the policy is that the IPRA public notice must be posted in 2 locations, one in the district office website and at the district administrative offices. This requires public notice to Public notice must also include information about copying fees for public records requests, and under IPRA, public bodies may charge a reasonable fee up to $1 per page for copies. However, state guidance emphasizes that fees should reflect actual cost of reproduction only and should not routinely default to the maximum allowable charge. Overall, these updates strengthen transparency, ensure compliance with IPRA requirements, and promote fair and consistent public records practices. Any questions on that one?
No, ma'am.
That's all I have for tonight.
I will let you know that we have requested legal representation to come and help us with the DNR policy. And so that'll be coming in a very near future meeting.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Gallegos Ortiz. Members, at this time, we have consideration of approval of the second reads, policy service advisories, including volume 15, number 2 from August 2018, G 2150, GCB, J 7050, JR, I 2350, IHB, and Policy Services Advisory, Volume 26, Number 1, April of 2026. Superintendent.
I recommend that we do approve the second reads that you just mentioned.
Very good. Board members, is there a motion to approve said policies as listed?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Clausen and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the second read policy service advisories as listed. Board members, is there any discussion? All right, board members, all in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Next up, sir.
President Lee, board members, at this time, Mr. Jones is going to be talking about the preliminary approval of our budget. We're going to continue to talk about the budget for the next month. You know that is one of your big responsibilities as board members. And so tonight, we're seeking preliminary approval so we can notify the public education that we have a budget set. So, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, sir. Madam President, members of the board, as discussed, this is a preliminary or draft approval. We will hopefully get a final approval once you accept the audit. The lingering item being that carryover cash. There were a few items that I've added just recently that I notified Mr. Widener of this morning. They're not in relation to the SEG budget. They're actually in relation to the IDEAB budget for early childhood education and special education. So I've also heard no questions, should be pretty easy.
Excellent. So board members, at this time, we have consideration of the preliminary approval for the 2026-2027 Grant Cibola County budget. Superintendent.
Madam President, this is the drive that we all share, and so you all have you've had access since April. And so I recommend that we do approve the preliminary budget.
Very good. Board members, is there a motion to approve the preliminary 2026-2027 budget?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Clausen to approve the preliminary budget for 2026-2027. Any discussion, board members?
I think just my main concerns and questions, and maybe because this is like my first go round with this, who knows? I still am having a really hard time like tying like what, because I agree with you, I think like the budget is our primary fiduciary responsibility as board members, and so, you know, being able to tie how that addresses student needs and meet student outcomes. I mean, I I know, I definitely know and agree we have to pay bills, right? But really to be able to see like what those programs and supports and services are, that, help improve in a measurable way, our, student success. I also, I think this was brought up in a previous discussion, how the previous strategic plan and the budget that went along with that strategic plan was, what the outcomes were, in regards to that strategic plan. And so I personally just don't feel like there's been enough information to help me understand what those outcomes, were and how they were met and how the budget, addressed those issues.
Board members, we had our presentation last board meeting, where we looked at the different pieces of the pie and we found out kind of the information from the survey of what our people wanted, what they wanted for the kids. Talked about the pie and how much of that is salaries and how much of that is employees, and then talked about kind of the priorities from our surveys. So the preliminary budget is currently leaning in that direction, right? You're right, we have not discussed the previous strategic plan or the attainment of those goals. And so we'll probably continue that discussion at our next work session. But as of right now, that's how the preliminary budget is set. Mr. Jones, do you have?
Sir.
Madam President, Board Member Lorenzo, and I think this goes along with one of the questions you asked the legal team. What can a school district do to address Yazi Martinez? How does the budget work? It's unfortunate that we don't have a lot of flexibility. It's kind of static, salaries, utilities, things of that nature. So if we're adding a program, because we don't have the flexibility in the budget, we have to take away. What we did is we utilized our ESSER funding to start childcare for employees, free summer programming, standards-based instruction, which the district has. My point is you need startup money to create new programs, and without ESSER in existence anymore, without a big budget or flexibility from the state, it's really hard to start new programs to address anything. It could be Yazi Martinez, it could be student outcomes, without taking away from current programming. So I hope that kind of answered your previous question as well. It's difficult when you are spending 85% of your SEG on salaries and benefits, which is an adequate percentage, and the other 15% really paying for operations of the district.
Anything further, board members? All right, at this time, all in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay.
Me, sorry.
I mean, I could change it. The motion does carry.
At this time, Mr. Jones is going to give us an update on Mesa View. We are in the final steps of the Mesa View construction project. Very excited about Mesa View, and actually going to update us on the furniture RFP. And we had furniture vendors here last week. So, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, sir. Madam President, members of the board, this is kind of the exciting time where things start coming together. We're getting a lot of the finished work done and trim work, and doors are getting installed, and we have a cleaning crew there, and we're really to the part where it's going to start looking like a school where students are inhabiting that space. So we issued an RFP in partnership with New Mexico Public Schools Facilities Authority. This project is a cost-sharing project with PSFA as our co-owner. They share 76% of the cost. In the RFP, we had 8 companies that submitted proposals for furniture. Of those 8 companies, our evaluation committee, which included staff from that school, selected 3. Those 3, we had them bring setups so that our people can have eyes in them and sit in their chairs and fill them out. Based on those 3 proposals, we have a selection. The selection is from Verco. Verco is a company that is located in the Tucson area. They are a manufacturer and seller. So all of their own products from the entire life cycle, from raw materials to being in our schools. It is a higher quality product. It comes with a little bit of a price tag. I'll remind you that procurement law is the best value for the district, not necessarily outright price. Our portion of the cost sharing is that 166,387.32. That's 26% of the total cost. Just so you understand the process, we've done the RFP very well. It's really, really clean. What we'll do is we'll take these meeting minutes with the proposal and send it to PSFA and say, this is what we're moving forward with. We need a purchase order so they fulfill that whole 100%. 74%, 26% us, meaning making 100, and then we'll start shipping furniture out. So I anticipate that after today, we're probably 8 weeks away from having furniture in that whole building, which is cutting it close, but honestly, kind of the ideal time where the school will be done, we'll have occupancy, and we can start setting things up.
Excellent. Superintendent, board members, we have now consideration of approval of the Mesa View Furniture RFP in the amount of $166,387.32. Superintendent.
I recommend that we do approve the RFP in the amount of $166,387.32.
Excellent. Board members, is there a motion to approve the Mesa View RFP? A second, please.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Clausen and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the Mesa View Furniture RFP with the company Verco in the amount of $166,387.32. Any discussion, board members?
Does that affect our staff to build it, or how are they put together? Do they come put together, or?
It depends. So student chairs that can stack, they'll box those in, stacks, the desks and things like that, they'll assemble on site. The pricing includes all of the delivery, all of the installation. So Verco will have a crew in the building. Where we've timed it right and we're not rushing it, I would assume that they can get everything done in a couple of weeks. They're very, very flexible. They kind of said if you needed to get it done in 3 days, we could send a crew of 20 people and get it done. So I mean, this is what they do full time.
So it's not IKEA.
No, no,
So like within 8 weeks, they'll start putting stuff in.
absolutely. Just really quick as well, and I'll invite the board. We're gonna have the staff tour the school Friday. It's kind of the first time that the staff at large has been able to walk through the school and check things out. That'll be at 1:15. I know that the Mesa View staff has been very anxious. As a teacher, you look out the window and you see the construction happening and all of those things. And unless you are supposed to be there, have a hard hat, steel toes, and high visibility gear on, you don't get to come. So we're super grateful for Bradbury STAM allowing us to do that. And for Superintendent Widener really kind of rallying the troops and showing off that new space.
Excellent. All right. Anything further, board members, discussion wise? All right. At this time, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Mr. Widener.
As Mr. Jones shared a little bit ago, we are kind of a divided group tonight. We sent a group of instructional folks out to Laguna Acoma for the honors and robing and the awards tonight. And so I've asked Mr. Jones to present on STEAM Camp. STEAM Camp, we've hosted it here in the district for about 4 years. It is very popular. Our kids love it. It's science, technology, engineering,
arts and mathematics. And we do STEAM camp in the summer. It's hands-on learning for our kids. It's a great summer school opportunity, kind of a great thing for some of our Yazi Martinez students, and a great learning opportunity for kids, and it's in the summer. And so it does cost $79,800 to bring STEAM camp in, but it does affect kids throughout the district. So, Mr. Jones?
Madam President, members of the board, just to address some frequently asked questions, it's approximately 10 days. It goes from June 1st to June 10th. We feed the students lunch while they're here. It services students 1st through 8th grades. It is very popular. Our kids talk about it a lot. I was happy to present tonight. You'll notice that we didn't get 3 quotes, and there's a reason for that. So STEAM Camp and the company that puts that on, they are what we consider a sole source vendor. They're the only vendor that does what they do. So that letter has been provided as well. That allows us under New Mexico Procurement Code to forego getting 3 quotes because, again, they're the only person that can do that. It's something that's really fantastic for our kids. While I have the floor, I'll add also, we have summer literacy and math programs going on at Mesa View, Mount Taylor, and Milan Elementary Schools. We also have credit recovery summer school going on at both high schools, all really during this first week in June. So if you're a student anywhere in the district, you have opportunities for summer programming, and we feed lunch and do all of those things as well. So it's a good opportunity for the students.
Excellent, thank you, sir.
Can I ask you a question? What time is that from?
STEAM camp starts at
They
8
go from
a.m.
8 to 1,
8 to
so they
1?
usually go 8 to noon and then eat lunch.
And then we also do the summer lunch program as well.
Is transportation provided for STEAM camp and the summer literacy and credit recovery?
We are doing that locally, right? So if you're at Milan, if you go to, we do have our buses running, right, Mr. Jones?
It depends. So, like our students that, and this is kind of just the name of the game, but if you're a high school student, you failed a class, you get to take yourself to summer school. And that's kind of just been district practice forever. The others, getting a high school kid to the high school is a little bit different than getting a first grader to, Milan Elementary School, whatever it is. So it's not the same model, I guess, for transportation through all the programs.
How do we get some of like our rural kiddos to participate in these if they're not providing?
In the credit recovery.
Yeah.
So most of our credit recovery is online. We use online curriculums. And so I know we do have partnerships with Acoma Department of Education where we can help kids work with credit recovery online.
Do we provide like tablets or something like that if they don't have technology or Wi-Fi?
In the past, we have provided Chromebooks. I'm not certain that we're still one-to-one with everybody, but if we have kids online, we do try to help with that.
Anything else on this? So board members, at this time, we have consideration of approval of the summer 2026 Think STEAM Camp services in the amount of $79,800. Superintendent.
I recommend that we approve and pay for STEAM camp.
Board members, is there a motion to approve the summer 2026 Think STEAM Camp services? A second?
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Clausen to approve the summer 2026 Think STEAM Camp services in the amount of $79,800. Any further discussion, board members?
Was it a credit recovery program?
No, not
Oh,
STEAM.
it's not. Oh.
I think I would just, for future, like to explore more how we can get some of our rural kiddos in transportation to be able to participate. Maybe just future discussions.
Thank you. All right, board members, those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Widener, sir.
Madam President, board members, last board meeting, or during our last work session, we talked about our strategic plan and looked at 3 options for consultants to partner with us on stakeholder meetings and expanding the framework, putting in deliverables into our strategic plan. In research with procurement code, it would not be legal for the board to select a consultant. Instead, the board can look at the consultants and kind of give me a direction of what you want to see from those consultants. I've asked Mr. Chavez and Mr. Jones to kind of provide insight to that, and why as superintendent, I have to select the consultant, but you guys have to give me direction. So, Mr. Jones?
Perfect, yeah. Madam President, members of the board, this is kind of just a funny thing with New Mexico procurement. So the Board of Education, as the governing body of the school district, approves the budget. You also, just in this meeting, have approved the purchases of things in excess of $60,000. I have to come to you to get that approval. I've personally put eyes on all of these contracts where their amount is less than 60,000. The best practice is really that you identify what products, features, services you would like in a proposal, and then allow your employee, Superintendent Widener, to go and procure those services. What this does is it protects you as the board so that you don't say, well, I really love this person, but I really don't like this person out loud in a public meeting, because these are people that we're doing business with for a while, right? It also protects the school district so that every time we need something done, we don't have to come and ask the board to do it. And it keeps us kind of individually in our lanes. I know that it's something that is, the board drives the strategic plan, and the superintendent and his executive team carry out that plan. And I think that kind of determining that relationship and saying, this is what we need this person to do, and saying, Superintendent Widener, go and find that person, is the balance there. And I'll reiterate again, ultimately is to save the Board of Education from putting themselves in a potentially compromising position with procurement when it is not necessary for them to do so. I asked Mr. Chavez, just with his experience and his demeanor, to fill in any gaps that I may have missed as we have discussed this, and he's been through this process as well.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Madam President, members of the board, I think Superintendent and our Executive Director of Finance has covered it pretty well. I think just following the process, going through and making a recommendation, bringing it to the board for final approval. Is the best path forward. It's a lot tighter. It keeps everybody in line with the process that's currently in place. As we've talked, the only time really the board makes a decision on a consultants, if you're going to look for a superintendent, if you're going to try to procure legal counsel for the board, things of that nature. I think this falls in line with our process, tasking the superintendent from the board of what you guys are looking for, and then having the evaluation and scoring of those who have submitted the proposal.
So I have a question regarding this. In the past, the board obviously, when we selected the board attorneys, the board was provided an opportunity to communicate with the superintendent individually as well as together, to be able to discuss those things that, you know, we felt were important to put into a true RFP. This not being or necessitating an RFP process, perhaps you could give us recommendations on steps forward, because I think all of us thought we were coming in here and, you know, the process was gonna be similar, you know, to taking consensus, where I was gonna ask everybody to write down on a note card what their preference would be, having looked at these three proposals. But now moving forward, knowing that that isn't necessarily the, you know, the best practice for a district, and especially for the board, what what would the recommendation be following procurement on how we handle this? Because quite simply, it would be very easy for each board member to tell Mr. Widener exactly what we would like to see out of it, and then, you know, be able to have a discussion, perhaps in the work session, where we say, you know, these are the things, and Mr. Widener would be able to say, these are the things that the board has suggested. And, you know, let's discuss and finalize, you know, kind of streamline what those wants and asks are. And then he would be able to have, you know, a recommendation beyond that. Suggestions, please.
So, Madam President, members of the board, I think that this is a situation in which we're in a position where all board members can win. Where you can schedule time with Mr. Widener, you can sit down and in the scope of this, I would really like whoever we select to do community outreach. I would like them to be in our communities and asking questions and those sorts of things. So you will all have different priorities in terms of what our consultant is doing. I think that you communicate that with your employee, allow him to then go to vendors and say, these are the services that I need. Who can facilitate that the best? And again, value for the district. So instead of proposal takers, we're proposal makers. This is our proposal. What can you do with it? And then that really lets us control the procurement side of things. It also lets us control the performance. Because then if we have a situation in which we hire a consultant to come and facilitate this work and it's inadequate, we can ask, is this something that the consultant has dropped the ball on, or is this something that we missed in our scope of work? I think it keeps everybody honest if we do it that way.
And you do have the three proposals, that's in the drive. They list the services. They have looked at our strategic plan. They've looked at the skeleton that we've been working on, right? And looked at our historical strategic plan. I will start a Google Doc for us. And maybe I can put tabs at each page, so Mr. Clausen will have a page and board member Hadamio will have a page, and you can kind of go in there and put what you'd like to see and give me feedback on direction. My recommendation tonight is that we don't take action, that we kind of let that pass. But I think we can electronically communicate, and of course you can call me and tell me, hey, I really like that this consultant said that they would do this, and you know, I had one consultant tell me, well, your board represents the stakeholders, and so you know maybe they should go in their communities and their areas and talk to the, you know, but you would need help to do that. So
Questions on this?
What's the time frame?
I would, all three of these folks say that they can get it done pretty quickly. So I think we could have a strategic plan by the summer. Before the start of the school year.
Excellent. All right, if there are no questions at this time, we have consent agenda. We have consideration of approval of the bills and expenditure report for April of 2026 and a single bar for flow through. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation, sir?
I do recommend that we pay the bills for April and approve bar 088-000-2526-0014. I. The consent agenda.
All right, very good. Board members, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the bills and expenditure report and the bar as listed that Mr. Widener very kindly read out loud for us? And a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Clausen and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the consent agenda as listed, including the bills and expenditure report for April 2026 and the bar 088-000-2526-0014 flow through. Mrs. Turley, roll call, please, ma'am. I caught you.
Mr. Clausen,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Ms. Lorenzo, Ms. Lee.
Aye, the motion carries. Sir, superintendent's report.
Glad I'm not the only spot.
Yeah, I know, same.
It turned
Well,
off.
it's not.
It
It
turned
hasn't
off.
been on for quite a while.
I'm like, whew. It is our meeting, our second meeting of the month where I present the Social Emotional Learning Awards and the Edu Champion Awards. For the month of May, we selected a group and an individual for the Social Emotional Awards. We wanted to I recognized a young man who is sitting out in our virtual world. He's helping us broadcast tonight's board meeting. Nathan Neely, he works in the GCCS technology department. And we are celebrating Nathan because he earned his associate's degree and he also obtained his CompTIA cybersecurity certification. And what that does is that protects us all. That protects us when we're on the computers, and that protects our kids when they're on the computers. And Nathan has worked with us since he's been very young. And so we're excited to see Nathan advancing his education and doing what's best to help all users in our GCCS community and keeping us safe online. So Nathan, thank you very much for your social. We also recognized the mathematics department from Grants High School. The department heads in that department are Gabriel and Imelda Leopondo, their husband and wife. And they do, for the last years, I believe 5 years now, maybe it was the fourth one.
4.
They hosted they helped organize and prepare for the GCCS mathematics competition. And that's important. That's important that our kids grow in their math skills and learn strong math skills. And the math competition is always a wonderful district-wide event. We bring kids in from all schools. And so we recognize Mr. and Mrs. Leopondo and thank them for their leadership in making that happen. And finally, this morning I recognized Mrs. Tricia Garcia. She works in the business office. She works with the RFPs. She did the work on the Verco furniture. She also, 2 weeks ago, brought in 85 students and about 25 employees and brought them in and let them sample different foods from our food service providers and from the RFPs. And she organized all of that. She did the rubric and the scoring and worked with the business office team to make sure that was fluid and transparent and really kind of established the criteria for that RFP. And we are very excited. We're gonna have good food going into the future. That was one thing that our family said they wanted. And so our Edu Champion for the month is Mrs. Tricia Garcia. I did want to give you final numbers for graduation, and Chanda and I didn't get it, we didn't get it typed and put in there, but you did. Oh, perfect, perfect. Grants High School, as of yesterday, they are graduating 180 students. They, 172 of those will be participating in commencement. 2 of them will finish this summer. But they are graduating 180 kids, which is a large class. So we're very proud of our Pirates, all 180 of you that are graduating, so. As I mentioned a couple of times, tonight is the honors enrobing and the awards at Laguna Acoma High School. We are very proud of our 62 Hawks that are gonna be graduating on Saturday, and we know that they're gonna do great things, so congratulations, Hawks. Last Friday morning, I got the pleasure of attending the graduation at the Early College High School. I know a few of you were there with me. And we celebrated our 12 graduates at the Early College High School. They also, a number of them got associate degrees at NMSU Friday night. And so I got to go to that commencement as well. So congratulations to our kids. Dr. Martin is really working hard and increasing the numbers at the Early College High School. So that's our graduation report. And then my update was that it's Board Member Jaramillo's birthday, and I think we have a card for him, right?
Yes.
You got it. Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. So happy birthday, Board Member Jaramillo. Thank you for spending your birthday with us and not at La Ventana.
Well, I get 2 birthdays. When that happens, I get 2 birthdays. I get the real one and then I get the fake one.
Just like the kid
Perfect.
says.
Yeah.
And you definitely don't want me singing for you.
Madam
We will
President,
spare your
that would
ears.
conclude the superintendent's
Thank you,
report.
guys. Appreciate
Very
that.
good, very good. Future agenda items.
Oh, goodness. I keep on top of this and I keep writing this every, try to make sure that we're setting the board meetings. And now with the work sessions and the board meetings, it's good because I can run both agendas at the same time. But I do have a staffing update for you. We'll have that as a future agenda item. We are going to approve the facility master plan as written. There may be some projecting of things that we want to see in the future. Where Mesa View is now, we've got to do something with that land. And so there may be some additions to the facility master plan and objectives for down the road. Next board meeting, we will be considering our Marzano renewal. The new art and science of teaching, which is our professional development for all faculty, all staff. We are going to purchase a maintenance backhoe. We are still in negotiations and pricing on that. So we will have a maintenance backhoe coming up. I have a proposal for math textbook adoption that I received that this weekend. And our end users have been vetting the textbook adoption, and so I'll be coming to you to share about the math curriculum. And Mr. Jones has mentioned several times that we will have our audit presentation, and we need to have the audit presentation so we know what our carryover funds are. And so audit presentation. We will have the collective bargaining agreement. We will have ratified salary schedules. NMSU will be here on June 2nd to present their board as part of our partnership. And we will talk about the board calendar and the OMA resolution. Along those lines, I'll also be coming to you in the very near future with a few amendments to the district calendar, adding in some professional development. And Mr. Jones will be coming to talk about the Mesa View Playground in the near future. He and Mr. Atencio are working very hard on that. So those are the future agenda items I have. Is there anything else? Of course, strategic plan is still on there.
Back to the base of you, I wanna know, exactly what are we gonna do with the stuff at the old school? I know Blue Water Village, we didn't know what we're gonna do with the desks and good stuff. I mean, there's some of that stuff, are we gonna store it? Are we gonna give it away or?
Oh, I can answer now. So, we have some sites, especially Mount Taylor and Milan, that are getting their pre-K three and their pre-K four running. And it's hard to find pre-K stuff because it's all so tiny. Where Mesa View has some newer pre-K furniture, we're gonna let those pre-K programs shop, if you will, and take some of the used stuff. As you'll recall, we had a flood there as well. So we refurnished some of the classrooms that are on the north and west side of the school. Those new furnishings, those sort of things, we'll make sure that we're pulling out and restoring that way if there's a need elsewhere we can use them. The way that PSFA does those demolitions is contents, all of it. What we've done in the past projects is our maintenance guys will go through. If there's something that is of nominal value that the school district doesn't have the space to store, it's not feasible for us to store. I think that it's probably appropriate that we dispose of that in terms of giving it away. I think that I should make a system in which one person doesn't get all of the furniture from Mesa View and then turn around and sell it and that kind of thing, because you don't want to get in that kind of trouble.
Unless it's like, say, Teresa's or Grace Baptist or.
We do have
church.
partner schools that we would be willing to donate to and
We
let
do,
them.
and typically that's where we'll start. We'll start with St. Teresa's and St. Joe's, and then we'll call churches in the area, community centers, those sorts of things, just to make sure that we're kind of taking
A lot
care
of
of the community.
daycares would need it, may need it.
So hopefully they're watching and they'll call me.
I don't know if our
What I had just
partner
said,
schools.
Yeah,
well, a lot of parents have been asking, what are they gonna do with the stuff? And I said, I know we had talked about it in Blue Water Village, and then by the time we do it,
it was gone.
it was gone, we don't
Yeah.
know. But I just want to make sure that, other schools have a chance to get stuff too, if it's still good, schools and daycares. Or maybe kids, maybe they want to take them to their house.
Yeah.
Like you said, you don't want somebody to make money off it either, it's say, take it all and then they go sell it.
So
Good call.
I'll reiterate what you said earlier. Working with the attorney to come and help with the policy advisories, food service RFP. I'm hopeful that we will get to do that soon, right? Final budget, obviously.
Yes, ma'am.
That was, and then the strategic plan, that was, and you already mentioned that was all I had on there.
Mr. Whiter, can I ask a question and go back
Yes.
to the graduation? I'm just looking at the numbers and that's a lot, right? Which is exciting stuff. Do you have like any updates on the valedictorians or salutatorians? Like who are the?
I don't. I know they were doing their senior stuff yesterday and they had the checkouts and they haven't released that yet. Maybe Laguna's was tonight. Well, I think I found out this morning who the valedictorian was at Laguna. I think but I don't know if I
We'll
should.
announce that, right?
Yeah, we'll let them announce that.
And we went to the Roby last year, just so.
And
happened
then,
it
Yeah, it
was-
was, this year.
Finals
unfortunately,
were
it was
today. Checkout is tomorrow.
now. Yeah, the 15th.
Okay,
So
so
is it based purely on like grades of GPA?
absolutely.
Okay.
And it's tight. It's tight at GHS. It's very, very tight. And then at early college, I guess I can say her name.
Sure.
That one, Larissa Diaz was valedictorian.
And I can't remember the nice boy's name that was salutatorian.
He
He
an
gave a
associate-
really
He
He
good
got an
speech.
associate's that night
Morgan.
too.
He did.
He got an
He was really good. I can't remember his name.
Marmon,
Oh,
the-
Marmon.
Marmon.
Marmon, that's right. Good memory,
I
Walter.
remember the painter or the
Yeah,
famous
Yep.
native photographer. Lee Mormon.
Yep. All right, anything? else
Presently, I
future
did
agenda?
write those items down.
Beautiful.
Food service RFP is currently in Santa Fe. We're waiting for Santa Fe to give us the go-ahead.
go-ahead.
And then we can
Nice.
bring that to you.
Announcements.
Announcements. Mrs. Turley has done PSAs so we can all be at events. Friday night, May 22nd, GHS will have their commencement at 6 p.m. On Saturday morning at 9 a.m., Laguna Acoma will have their graduation. And you're all invited and hopefully will be there representing the school district. The district is closed next Monday, May 25th for the Memorial Day holiday in observance of that. And our semester will end next Thursday on May 28th.
Excellent.
Then we'll start summer school the next week.
I was thinking, on that strategic plan, could we have like a retreat maybe? Like, I don't know. Cause it's something new we've never done with these strategic
Right.
plans.
Right. That's something that you definitely could talk.
We could,
You
I
could,
mean-
you could suggest to the
When we're all
superintendent.
together, you know what I mean? It's
Sure. Absolutely. Great suggestion. All right, superintendent, I'm gonna say happy birthday one more time to our board member Jaramillo. And then
all of you.
ask for a recommendation.
I recommend that we adjourn the meeting.
All right, board members, is there a motion to adjourn as presented?
So moved.
And a second? All right, board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Board has adjourned at